Okay.
Click on that and then she'll be on.
I'll be right back.
So we're getting ready to go live, ladies and gents.
Hi there.
Hello. Yay, Dr. Priya.
And then she'll be on.
I'll be right back.
All right. We're getting ready to go live, ladies and gents.
Hi there. Become more grateful. This is what I'm learning.
Awesome. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
There are more coming, I think, though, because
we are here for another session with The Doctors Are In. And this is going to be our last session, woohoo, for 2020. But we will be back the first week of
we'll be back.
Don't fear. We just figured that we needed to give our wonderful doctors some rest to be able to focus completely on their family. So I have my son, he's coming in from California, and I have the rest of my crew here. I know Dr. Ajibade is traveling, so he's not going to be able to be with us tonight. And Dr. Priya is here, and hopefully Dr. Orman will be able to also chime in as we go in. In any case, we are going to jump in and get started because we have lots of really good questions. But I'm going to first open up the panel for anyone who's here, because what I've shared with people is that yes, you can email me your questions. However, the people who are here in person take priority. So anyone here in person would like to ask a question, and you can
You can
put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Or you can ask.
Hi.
Hey, Sharon.
How are you?
We are blessed. Dr. Priya, we're not able to hear you. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I kept talking this entire time thinking that I was audible. I apologize.
No problem.
No problem.
I wanted to wish everybody a very happy, healthy, and abundant holiday season. Dr. Gamble, you first. And may God shower every blessing upon you and your son and family. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this. And thank you. You are such a generous, gracious, kind, and devoted human being. And
I am in the presence of absolute divine people. I love doing this because the generosity that exudes from every aspect of all the doctors on this team is just phenomenal. So I want to echo
you're amazing
of Dr. Priya in terms of congratulating you in prioritizing your health, because you can be in 50 million different places watching Hulu, Netflix, or whatever, chosen to prioritize your health, and you are magnificent beings. So welcome. And thank Sharon, you have the table. What is your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Dr.
Sure.
Priya, I
yes.
Went to the website. It's a very informative website, but I did have a few questions.
Yes, ma'am. Please go
January 5th is almost here.
Around the corner, yes.
Yeah. I know it says that you do blood work like every other, I think it's like 4 times or 5 times or something.
Yes, it's 4 times during the 30 days on days 0, 2, 7, and 30.
Okay.
And then ideally, we would love to have the patient back in on day 60 for blood work, or they can get it done wherever they are. And we can now that we're doing Zoom calls for COVID, we can do that for day 62. So wherever the patient lives. But the 30 days of treatment, they have to be done in person at our facility.
Yeah, so, I wanted to find out, like, what does the treatment entail? Is it medicinal, holistic, herbal?
Yes, it's a sure.
Just a moment, ladies and gents. I would like to interject for a moment.
Sure.
Dr. Priya, and I just want to familiarize everyone with what's happening right now.
Yes.
Dr. Priya has a phenomenal research project in terms of reversing kidney degeneration and kidney disease. And last week, we responded to a question about kidney failure. And that is where the rest of us learned about this phenomenal project that she is starting in January, on January 5th. If it's okay with you guys, I really, really want to encourage you guys to link with each other and
Yes.
discuss the specifics outside of this platform so that we can
Okay.
entertain a lot of other questions, and that you can really, Sharon, get the attention that you need in having a private conversation with Dr. Priya, because I'm sure she will agree that your specific needs are going to be unique to you, and she wants to really customize her approach in dealing with you. Is that fair enough, you guys?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very, very respectful of everyone's time, Dr. Gamble. I am very happy to answer Sharon's questions here, and I don't mind taking a few minutes because I think there's quite a few kidney disease patients. As you know, it affects 10% of our, in fact, it affects 15% of the US population, and it affects 35% of our veterans. So there's bound to be a few people with kidney disease in our audience, and I don't mind. I mean, for me, I could spend the whole hour talking about it. This is my area of expertise.
Yeah.
So, but you know, with all due respect, and thank you for the opportunity
So,
to
Dr.
speak.
Priya,
So,
if you could perhaps just give an overview
sure,
of
I can do that.
what
Yes,
the
ma'am.
project entails, and
Sure,
perhaps what are the qualifying factors, so that,
absolutely.
and again, everyone on this call, please, if you know someone who meets the criteria of Dr. Priya's project, please, please, please connect them
Please.
with her. So she's going
Yes.
to give us a general overview of what the
Yes.
project entails and what the selection criteria are for people to be involved in this project.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to do that. I also want to just take a second and answer Sharon's question about what does it entail? Is it holistic or is it medicinal and things like that? So basically, it is, Sharon, a combination of, it's a protocol that's several steps long, and we have patented this because it is safe. It works. It's very effective, and it works consistently. So it's safe,
Okay.
highly effective, and it is very consistent, and it's very safe. So I took
Okay.
the Hippocratic Oath when I graduated from medical school, which means first do no harm. You know, that's one of the first things in that oath. And so
Right.
I'm not going to ever offer something to a patient that I've not tried out on myself, my family members, and I know for a fact that it's safe before. And we have a whole cohort of patients that have had it 5 years ago that are all doing really, really well. So we
Okay.
had a bolus of patients that took it 5 years ago that have all done very well and that are continuing to do well. And then just to talk
Okay.
about what it involves, it is a combination of supplements and not typically pharmaceutical medicines, but they are medicinal combinations of substances. But this does not involve only biochemistry. It also involves biophysics. So it's a combination of environmental things. And biochemical supplements administered intramuscularly, intravenously, orally, and biophysics interventions. So that's the
Okay.
whole protocol. I hope that kind of gives you an overview of what
Yeah.
it involves. And then to answer Dr. Gamble's request, which is hopefully to share with everybody what sort of the criteria are that people need to meet in order to qualify for the study, I would say that anybody between the ages of 18 and 80, but will make
Right. Yeah, I
exceptions
saw
above
the
82.
criteria listed, the
Yes.
various things, heart attack in less
If
than
someone, yes, if
months.
someone's had
Okay.
a heart attack or a stroke in less than 3 months ago, we would not be treating them. If someone's had cancer less than 10 years ago, we would not want to treat them. If somebody's already on dialysis, then we would not put them as part of the study. But
Okay.
if they wanted to be outside the study, then we would consider that request on a patient by patient basis. And then they should have chronic kidney disease. Ideally, they have symptoms from it. If it's advanced, it's better because you're going to see more symptomatic improvement. And even if it's not advanced, all these non-specific symptoms that people are attributing to aging or, just, stress at work or stress at home or, whatever it is, a lot of those are associated with actually decline in kidney function. And, something that Dr. Gamble allowed me to present the last time, for which I'll be eternally grateful to you, Dr. Gamble, is that the kidney actually has a second function. This is a previously undescribed, hitherto unknown function, which is we are positing or hypothesizing that it is the lead organ in a putative regenerative organ system in the human body. So the regenerative organ system can basically keep a person alive forever. It can, I mean, theoretically, provided everything is working fine, right? So the blocks in
Okay.
this regenerative organ system to each organ, depending on the organ, if it's a block to the pancreas, it can cause diabetes. If it's a block to the kidneys, it can cause kidney failure. And then on the other side, we have aging, which is a different kind of a block of this regenerative organ system, what we call an afferent block. So if you have an efferent block, you have a chronic medical illness. If you have an afferent block, a person ages.
Ages.
But yeah,
Okay.
but potentially if the regenerative organ system is chugging along like it would in a teenager, we shouldn't, theoretically, technically, we shouldn't age and we shouldn't get chronic medical illness. So what we do is we reactivate that regenerative organ system. We
Okay.
reactivate its function. So for the first time ever in the history of Western medicine, we showed that kidneys are able to make trillions of stem cells, previously undescribed. So the kidney, we believe, is the lead organ in the body's regenerative organ system. And if you look at who kidney disease affects, it's primarily minorities. It's people who have not good enough socioeconomic support, maybe not education, they don't have family, maybe they don't have, whatever, social support, money, whatever you want to call it, or they're veterans and they've been through a protracted state of terror, right? These are people who develop kidney failure, and they also have a regenerative failure of kidney, not just the failure of its excretory function. So we are reactivating all of that.
Okay. Yeah, because I had sent my info on the website.
Oh, you had? Okay.
Yeah.
I will look into that. And if you'd like, you can use, is there a chat function? Yes. Ms. Brooks, could you put your email address on this, and I will be sure to respond to you tonight. So you
Okay.
have my direct contact information, and we'll stay in touch. And
I'll call you back.
I want to see if I can help you starting January 5th.
Also in the link
Okay.
for the video, or should I say in the video description,
Can
you'll be able to also see that there is a link to the page where you have all of our bios, and also on there will be a contact link where you can click on there and it'll send an email that says, I saw you on the doctors, and then you can put in your question is. Okay, Sharon?
Okay.
And
Thank you
just for
so much.
Sharon, Dr. Gamble, I also put my email address in case you prefer to not put hers, she can use mine.
Yes. So Dr. Priya's address is in the chat. And now we're going to run over to Miss Curry. She has her hand up. Go ahead, Miss Curry.
Hi, Miss Curry.
We have to unmute you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're muted. There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. So, Dr. Priya, this is a study, correct?
This is yes, it is a study. We're calling it a 30-day challenge because we want to prove to you that we can improve your creatinine, we can improve your energy, your endurance, your stamina, your strength, your mood, everything. Across the board, everything will get better. Your muscle mass, your creatinine will come down, the protein in the urine will come down. And we have actually shown this in all of our patients in whom we've given this protocol to.
I'm just wondering, is it, are there any financial incentives or any kind of incentive involved for the study?
Any financial incentives?
Any kind of incentives, right, Well,
your incentive is your improved health. And the beauty of what Dr. Priya is sharing with you is that they have gotten subsidiary funding to help to facilitate this process. So a lot of the costs are being covered by the foundation that she has. But there's no, I know that they have studies out there where they give you money to be a part of the study.
Oh, yeah, because I have done a lot of research studies, and where we always offer some type of incentive.
Not the case in this
okay,
study.
that was it.
They're not paying you to improve your health. No. she is generously offering you, or should I say, offering individuals the opportunity to improve their health.
Okay,
But
no, I'll
Oh,
just
they're not
wondering.
being.
oh, I did have just one more quick question.
Yes,
Since
ma'am.
I'm coming from out of town,
Sure.
is housing provided, or do I have to find,
What
housing?
we can help you find housing. We can
Okay.
talk to some of our local contacts here who have extended stay housing and who also have multifamily housing like apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we can arrange a subsidized housing for you in the sense that they won't charge, as a patient, they will charge you less than they would charge somebody that's,
Right.
That's good.
in the
But
workforce
again,
here.
Okay.
all
Okay.
details, you really need to contact Dr. Priya directly.
Right. No, that's why I just said a
for
quick,
all of the
yeah.
details.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I understand. And I'm available to answer any questions. So
Okay.
happy to.
Do we
Thank you.
have any other questions before I go into the questions that were emailed to me?
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Curry. Thank you, Ms. Sharon.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead to one of the questions that were emailed into me. We have a question regarding, are there any treatments for stimulating the pancreas to reduce the prevalence of diabetes among African Americans? So I'm going to ask Dr. Priya if she'd like to address that first, and then I will take it from where she leaves off.
Yes, Dr. Gamble, there's a lot of new studies that are going on to regenerate pancreas. So there is a professor out of Harvard that's actually grown islets of the pancreas in the lab in investigational animals, and they've also reimplanted this in the animal and cured type 2 diabetes. So I think that we are not far from the day where these types of studies will be starting to be made available to human beings. Now, what I want to say is that at our institute, what we do actually helps type 2 diabetes as well. We have a separate protocol for type 2 diabetes. We haven't gone into it, but it works exceedingly well for diabetic neuropathy. It works really well to bring down the hemoglobin A1C. It also, in type 1 diabetes, which is not doesn't have a racial predilection, actually, I have had one patient who was himself a physical therapist and a bodybuilder and a trainer who had had type 1 diabetes for you could say 45 years, since the age of 5. So he was 50 years old when he presented to my clinic. He had very well built muscles, and he would check his sugars 10 times a day in order to stay on top of the blood sugar situation, giving himself all different durations of insulins, the long acting, the medium acting, the short acting, and everything. And this gentleman, we gave him one treatment, one. And for the next 10 days, that very day, his blood sugar plummeted. So he actually found himself not needing, in fact, his daily insulin dose went down from 60 units to 10 units. And that benefit lasted for 12 days with one treatment in a type 1 diabetic. That's almost unheard of. So
Type 1, okay.
I would say there is very, very encouraging and promising treatments that are on the way. From a regenerative standpoint, I would say, obviously some drugs are very, very good. I would say liraglutide is one of them. I would say as well as Synjardy or Jardiance, which is a sodium glucose co-transporter inhibitor in the kidney. So it causes the body to dump salt and sugar in the urine. That is a very good one because it's actually associated not only with lower blood sugars, it is also associated with improved mortality due to cardiovascular disease. So metformin is another one. The only thing with metformin that you must not forget is that in 100% of people who take metformin, as I've mentioned this before, Dr. Gamble, 100% of everybody who takes metformin develops a profound vitamin B12 deficiency over a period of time. So if you start having burning feet, you start having falls, or you're not sure where you're putting your foot when you're taking a step, and you have to keep looking at the floor because you've lost proprioception, or you break an ankle or two. These kinds of injuries are happening. When they're happening, you have to think, is this a side effect? You shouldn't get it to that point. But a lot of times doctors don't know that metformin, when a patient takes metformin, which by the way is one of the longevity inducing drugs, okay, people have very opposing polar opposing views about metformin. In the United States, people who practice longevity medicine themselves take metformin just for longevity. Okay, so but metformin can induce a profound vitamin B12 deficiency. So that means you can't absorb the B12 from your diet or from any supplement that you take orally. So you have to take it as an injection. And when you take it as an injection, you might find that the complications of diabetes, like cardiovascular disease, like coronary artery disease, like peripheral neuropathy, might not even happen because the metformin was causing the B12 malabsorption, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of hope. It's in the pipeline. It's coming down to us in a very short period of time. We ourselves can do it. We haven't yet announced a clinical trial for it, but this will be the place that we will announce it first, Dr. Gamble. We have very good results with both type 2 and type 1 diabetes. So,
and I to, also add to that.
Yes, ma'am.
The understanding of prevention, meaning what I have seen in a lot of clients that I have with diabetes is that they have the mistaken belief that they're not producing enough insulin. And
Exactly.
and for the clients that I have, it's a baseline test with every single person I take on into my group. I always do a fasting insulin. And what I have found time and time again is that the insulin is actually elevated. And the reason why this is important to note is because many times in this country, one of the medications that is given to type 2 diabetics without even testing is insulin. That is what that is what happened to my own daughter. My daughter that I adopted, the doctor initially said that she was a type 1 diabetic and put her on metformin and insulin. And I asked him, well, what are you basing that on? Have you done extensive tests? I asked him about doing the antibody test. He didn't do that. He's like, oh, I've been doing this for blah, blah decades. I know what I'm doing, blah, 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 yak, yak, yak. And at that point, I couldn't do anything because at that point, I was just a foster parent. But what I did is that I changed her diet. When she came into our house, I changed her diet. And what I noticed was that because we modified her diet, her blood glucose in the morning started to go rock bottom. And then when I went back to the doctor, he agreed to slowly lower her insulin to the point where we were able to get her off of all of her medications, all of the insulin, all of the metformin, everything, right? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if we had continued giving her the insulin, what would have happened is that her pancreas would eventually have shut down because your body says, you're going to give me the insulin? Work after all. You're going to give it to me so I don't have to work. And I truly believe that that is what is happening to a lot of type 2 diabetics in this country, that they may go in to a doctor and their blood glucose is high. And instead of checking the fasting insulin, they automatically assume that they are not producing enough insulin. And so they start administering insulin to these patients. And that actually causes the degeneration of the pancreatic function. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider when you're talking about the pancreas is that the pancreas not only produces insulin, it also produces food enzymes, So it's very critical to look at what kind of foods you're eating. If you're eating dead foods, otherwise known as cooked foods, you're going to overtax the dependency on the pancreas to continue working and working and working because all of the food that you're eating is dead and has no enzymes. If the food that you're eating is dead, meaning it's not live, it's not fresh, it's not raw, then that means that your body now has to work overtime to produce the food enzymes to break down your foods. that creates an extreme amount of stress on your pancreas, in addition to whether or not you choose to engage in a lot of refined foods, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of sugars, a lot of pastas, white rice, all of those things, even white milk, will cause a surge in insulin in your body, which is overtaxing your pancreas. So I'm stressing this because a lot of times we get into this mode of plan B or the morning after pill, meaning we choose to transgress, we choose to engage in sins, simply ignoring nature's supremacy. And we say, oh, well, I want to do anything I want to do, and I'll just take the pill afterwards, whether it be metformin or the shot of insulin or whatever it is. And at some point in time, you're going to have to pay the piper, okay? So we need to start looking critically at preventative measures. We need to start to look at how do we stop the process of degeneration, and how do we support the pancreas? How do we support the kidneys? How do we support all of these beautiful organs that God, our creator, has gifted to us?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Dr. Gamble. I just want to add a few things to what you said so beautifully. They mentioned the race. And so definitely, one of the things that I would say has an effect on the type 2 diabetes that may be related to the race is the inability of the body to regenerate. If the regenerative organ system is shut down due to whatever causes, because of the race, okay, if somebody has an existence in a particular system that discriminates against a particular race, then that may cause an effect on the regenerative organ system. My point here is that there are lots of things we can do to help ourselves. So, what Dr. Gamble said, today I made the choice to eat pizza. Okay. I mean, so I feel like I'm not the person to lecture to you, but I know plenty of patients who'd eat an extra, like a giant piece of dessert, and then give themselves an extra short acting insulin shot, or they'll pop a couple of more metformin and they think as long as they got the sugar down, they're okay. They can do that thing and do that. And we would say that, I can actually recommend a particular diet called the metabolic reset diet. And I have followed that, and I've actually lost 35 pounds of weight in a 10-week period using the metabolic reset diet myself. And so I would recommend that for you. And all it does is it resets the entire hormonal, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And so there are lots of things that we can do to prevent the blood sugar from going very high, including taking our micronutrients, including taking our vitamin B12 shots, including meditating, so that when the stress level goes up, if somebody rejects us, somebody says something awful, somebody says something hurtful, somebody treats us like subhuman, or our damages our human dignity, whatever it is, to learn to separate that from us and to not it's very difficult to lecture this, right? But it's a lot of sort of building our own souls up to where, okay, that's that person's problem, that's not who I am, right? That person does not know how to engage with a person of my race. They don't understand this about somebody like me, right? And so when we turn that into an empowering thing, every time somebody does that, I have to make myself better. Every time somebody does that, I will choose not to eat that pizza today. I'm telling this to myself now. Every time somebody does that, I will choose not to eat that slice of bread today. All those white foods, that drive the sugar up. So just like Dr. Gamble said, the insulin level has to be under 5 units. If it's above 5, then that means the amount of carb consumption is very, very high. Another thing Dr. Gamble mentioned, there's a lot of food allergies. These are very inflammogenic. So when you set the body on fire from food allergies, because we have consumed allergenic or immunogenic or inflammogenic food for decades now, then that can, over a long period of time, lead to diabetes, that can lead to heart disease, or what's called the metabolic syndrome. So this metabolic reset diet is a great way to take back control because it eliminates all those sources of food allergies. It eliminates all of that food that's, overcooked or does not have ATP or the energy molecule in it. By the way, as you mentioned, Dr. Gamble, you were saying if the food's not raw, it doesn't have energy. That energy is ATP, right? That's the biological currency of energy, ATP. And so even in grocery stores, when you have FDA inspectors coming and checking whether the food is fresh or not, the lettuce, is it wilted? They are checking for the amount of ATP. When they take a little snippet of that leaf of lettuce, they bring it to the lab and they're checking it for the amount of ATP in it. So if it's below a certain level, that lettuce should never have been put out on the shelf or should have been taken out, right? So that's how they assess vegetables. Imagine us as a big vegetable, to have that ATP. We eat that food that is, that's why they say grow it right there in your backyard. Don't let it travel for miles and miles before it gets to your grocery store. Don't let it sit in the refrigerator. Make a smoothie of it. Drink your food. Eat food that doesn't cause allergies, right? Don't eat all the whites, right? And then do this mental and the spiritual balancing where when someone attacks, how do we react? How do we respond? Well, how do we react as we go and harm ourselves? Well, how do we respond as we go and strengthen ourselves? Oh, we should change the way we think, right? If somebody attacks, that means I need to go strengthen myself. If somebody attacks, I go strengthen myself. Attack, strengthen, attack, strengthen. So then what we're doing is we've turned that stimulus from a self-harm stimulus to a self-building up stimulus. And so, because you brought up race, I can completely relate to that, and it's something I'm working on too. I can't say I've already arrived, but I completely agree with all of the points Dr. Gamble made. And in the metabolic reset diet, not only they follow something like the keto diet, but we have Dr. Baxter Montgomery here in Houston, who's a cardiologist, who puts all his patients on a vegan diet. And so that's the other thing is animal protein containing diet is extremely toxic to the kidneys. And then one last thing I want to say, Dr. Gamble, there is a gentleman who has written a book called Death to Diabetes. He's an African-American gentleman who worked for Texas Instruments, I think, for many years, 30 plus years. He has a whole line of products, everything from books, tapes, hypnotic reprogramming. He was admitted to the ICU with a blood sugar of 1,000 and in diabetic ketoacidosis at near death. But his daughter and his mother and very many of his colleagues helped him actually not only come out of that episode, but reverse the diabetes all the way to the point where he had no diabetes. Another book I would recommend is by Dr. Neil Barnard, and that's called Reversing Diabetes. And basically what all these people are saying is, do not eat a lot of fat. Do not eat a lot of garbage food. Like Dr. Gamble said, the processed food, the overcooked food, it shouldn't have anything synthetic in it. It shouldn't have anything processed, shouldn't be overcooked. Ideally, it should be in the periphery of the grocery stores. And you measure it. Let it not have too much fat, because fat also leads to insulin resistance in the diet. According to Dr. Neil Barnard, he says under 5% of your daily calories should come from fat. So what can you eat? It's mostly vegetables,
And everyone is going to be different, So
exactly. I agree.
That I share with people that like I said, that I do with all of my clients is do a baseline assessment where you find out what your weak areas are, because many different people, if I work with 5 different diabetics, they're going to have 5 different issues at least. Some people have elevated blood glucose because of stress, as Dr. Priya said. So with those people, we work on how do you transform stress? How do you allow yourself to shift out of those stress patterns? For other people, they become diabetic because they're just eating a whole lot of junk food, a lot of processed foods. Some people, they become diabetic because they don't have certain key nutrients in their diet. And sometimes some of the key nutrients that you need to have are essential fatty acids. If you don't have essential fatty acids, if you have gone to this extreme of thinking that you shouldn't have any fats, then you create other issues. and you create a situation where you're not producing enough cholesterol, because people don't realize that you can go in the reverse direction of having too little cholesterol. In fact, out of the 3 people that I've worked with this week, 2 of them had low cholesterol. Go figure, right? So now when you have low cholesterol, you're not able to produce the proper hormones that your body needs, and that creates additional stress, okay? Then you have other people who are not able to have the proper amount of B vitamins in their diets. And B vitamins are critical to your body's ability to properly metabolize glucose. That is why white foods, processed foods are so horrible, because what they have done is taken all of the B vitamins out of the foods, because that would lead to rancidity, meaning the food would spoil quickly, and they don't want that. So they take all the B vitamins out, and when they take all the B vitamins out, now you don't have the essential cofactors that your body needs to properly metabolize carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
Then you have other people who have issues in terms of the resistance,
right?
the insulin resistance of the cells, where their body, it sees the insulin, it's like, nah, we don't want you. And that's the problem, the fact that they have insulin resistance. You know, so it's not necessarily that they're eating a whole lot of carbs, but rather that they don't have the receptors. The receptors have been blunted. They've been, you know, shut down, and they're not functioning properly to be able to carry the insulin into the cell to give you that energy. And so the glucose just stays in the bloodstream. So there are countless reasons why people may be diabetic. And you cannot just make a blanket statement of saying, oh, it's this or oh, it's that. And unfortunately, when we go the medical route of doing metformin or insulin, we are making a blanket statement, and we're not looking at the root causes of why the blood glucose is high in the first place. Linda, you had a question? You have to unmute, sweetie.
I just wanted to add one quick thing about liraglutide and weight loss and blood sugar control. Liraglutide I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get Linda. She was saying something. Linda?
Oh.
There you go.
Okay. I was diagnosed with diabetes 2015. And I had a A1C of 11.83.
Wow.
And my blood glucose was over 1,000. So they just couldn't understand how I was not going into any type of insulin shock. So, you know, I mean, I was hanging in there with the milk. But when I came out, they put me on insulin for 4 times a day. That long acting one, and then you have to take the 3. But I was like, I can't live like this. I can't be walking around sticking myself with pins. But what I was able to do is that my doctor worked with me, and she kept me on a protein, vegetables, no fruits, nothing at all, and just got my glucose down to my A1C down to like 6.
Excellent.
Since 2015, I haven't taken the medication at all, but I think I'm feeling like with this going on, with the pandemic going on, I'm inside more, I'm eating more. I think I need some help here, you know, because I don't want to. I see that my glucose is going, because I take it every day, every meal still.
Perfect.
The insulin,
that it is going up and up. But I want to, you know, I'm interested in that metabolic diet.
Yes, metabolic reset.
You can
reset. So how do I get that?
I will. Would you want to contact me? I can get you all the information on it.
Yes.
And we will be shortly set up to provide it too. But if you'd like to start right away, then I can refer you to the people who are doing it right now.
And I'm doing it, Linda. So if that's something that you want to do, as I said, I work with a lot of diabetics, and I have all of the programming that's in place, so that we can provide you with the support that you need to really customize it to your needs, because it's not simply about using a blanket program, but rather getting the assistance that you need to be able to tweak it so that you're addressing your specific issues. Because food is just one layer of this entire puzzle when it comes to diabetes. You know, there's so many other layers, like Dr. Priya said. There's the emotional layer, there's the thinking layer, you know, there's a lot of of negative thinking that goes on in your mind as you're
Yeah.
processing.
So I mean, when they say there is no health without, but there is no health without mental health.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
you gotta
So
have the mental health because the body falls in line. So yeah, but
So we have apps and everything that we can get you connected with, and we have groups that that meet, you know, to support each other. So you can feel free to contact Dr. Priya and myself, and you can
We'd
if
be
you
happy
just
to help you. Yes.
if you just
I'm
want,
ready to go here as soon as y'all can get me going. I'm ready to go.
yeah,
Because I mean, I've seen what diabetes have done to people's lives. I've seen how it has crippled them and just shortened the quality of their life. And I don't want that.
Yes.
and the
You're
key
very wise.
we're pointing out here is it's not just about diabetes, especially in this time that we're living in with the coronavirus. You are extremely putting yourself at risk if you do not have your blood glucose levels
Under
intact.
control.
And see, and then the other thing that we're not looking at is that one of the key nutrients that helps you to keep your blood glucose regulated are things like vitamin D. And
I take it every day.
and practically every person that I have tested has low vitamin D.
Deficient. Yes.
Yeah, I had low vitamin.
Even people who are taking vitamin D, when I look at them, their vitamin D levels are low because they think, oh, I'm taking 2,000 or something like that. But if you have some kind of inflammation in your body, chronic inflammation like diabetes, hypertension, all those kind of good stuff, and obesity, you're going to need some serious vitamin D. And then you also need support in breaking down those fats because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So if you're not taking it with healthy fats, and if your body has difficulty breaking down fats in the first place, which is most diabetics have problems breaking down fats in the first place, then even if you're taking vitamin D and A and, you know, and E and, you know, other fat soluble
magnesium on stuff. Yeah.
Well, magnesium is a mineral, you know,
Absolutely
so
need
it doesn't
magnesium.
necessarily need fats for its absorption into the body. But these key nutrients need to be assessed, and you need to have an understanding of what your levels are so that if they are below a certain point, you're able to give it adequate attention by supplementation. See what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Question.
Yes, sorry, somebody had a question. I just wanted to tell Linda a little bit about the metabolic reset, but we can come back to that after Dee's question. Sure.
Yeah, Dee, you have a question?
I have a question. The name says D, but I'm Joyce. I'm Dee's and Linda's sister.
Oh.
I don't know why it says D, but I'm Joyce.
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay.
I'm diabetic also. I'm type 2.
Yes.
And I take glipizide and Farxiga.
Okay.
The last time I had my A1C check, it was 7.2. That was in November.
Okay.
And
still high.
Yeah, it's a little high.
It's a little high. It's not terrible. Yeah.
No, it's not terrible, but I like my sister said, I know what it can do, and I want to get involved with this metabolic diet.
Metabolic reset diet. I would love to help them, Dr. Gamble. Absolutely, Linda, and is it Doris or is it Joyce? Joyce. Okay. So absolutely. So I would love to help both Linda and Joyce, and I think Dr. Gamble and I will work together to come up with a plan to do this, if that's good with you, Dr. Gamble.
And like I said, Joyce and Dee and Linda, it's very easy in the sense that when you know exactly what your specific needs are, then it's very easy to be able to tailor your program to your needs. You know, when you're dealing with just a generic plan, because the reality is you can go to Google and type in cardio metabolic plan and it'll come up. That's not a biggie. But the biggie is getting the support that you need with someone who is very well versed and with a community. What I tell people, the missing link for most people is that they're not part of a community. Because when you are having a rough moment, all the metabolic plans, PDFs, and YouTube videos don't mount up to a hill of beans, okay? You need to be able to contact somebody in person, have a buddy system, and things of that nature. where you're able to support each other, you know? So that is one of the things that I love, love, love doing. And I have countless people that I've worked with that will tell you that, you know, for me, a 7 is not good, because when you're looking at a 7, you're still looking at an average blood glucose of over 150. And that's not good. That's not good. Meaning that you can get it down to be less than that, because optimally, we want our A1C to be no higher than 5.5.
5
Yeah.
point,
Right.
yeah,
Five is
I think 5.7, 5.5.
5.7 is when you're getting into the pre-diabetic mode. And like I said, you're getting into that zone of not yet, which is like, that's not satisfactory to me, because I know from experience what your body can do. I believe in you. I know this. I know this.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Gamble, you were saying that you need serious vitamin D. How much vitamin D do we need?
Well, on average, the optimal range for vitamin D is 80 to 100. That is what we recognize in functional medicine as being the optimal range for vitamin D. You know, especially given the fact that you are dealing with certain inflammatory conditions in your body, and you're African American. So African Americans in general need more vitamin D.
Okay.
You know, and then if you have diabetes, if you have obesity, if you have cardiovascular issues, if you have immune issues, you need more vitamin D.
Yes, if I could just quickly interject, yeah, because I'm on 50,000 units, the one that you take once a week, vitamin D, because I had very low vitamin D, and I'm a perfect case study, you know, with the diabetes and the high blood pressure and everything like that. So yeah. So
what is your level now?
Yeah.
On the 50,000 units?
I don't know. I'm scheduled for some blood work in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So
please share with us, because we would love to hear and try to help out. And a little, Dr. Gamble and I have a little bit of we have a little different, numbers range for the vitamin D. For me, between 50 and 70 is typically acceptable. And in the 90 and 100 is when we are taught in nephrology that blood vessels start to calcify. So to stay away from the high end of that vitamin D level. But you know, have I seen it with my own eyes? No, but so I would say 50 to 70 is also an acceptable range for vitamin D, depending on what type of practitioner you go to.
35.8. Is that bad?
Yeah, yours needs to be considerably higher. Yeah, it needs to be at least 50 to 70 range.
That's still very low. Sharon, and also to take into consideration how long you've been doing the 50,000. So that's to be considered. And like I said, it's very critical to monitor what your level is within, I would say, a month to 3 months after you start a certain protocol with vitamin D.
Yeah, that's why it's going to be in a couple of weeks, because I started it about 2.5 months ago.
Oh yeah, it's time. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times people are taking vitamin D and they think like, oh, okay, I'm covered. And then they look at a blip on the radar, so that means that there are other mechanisms at work that need to be addressed. And a lot of times, in my experience, it's that people are not metabolizing their fatty acids effectively. And that relates to whether or not you're going to be able to break down your vitamin D efficiently. And then it can also be like, when you take your vitamin D, what are you taking it with? Are you taking it with cofactors, blah, 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 yak. But everybody is different. Everybody is different. So
a couple of things I'd like to add about vitamin D is it's very difficult. I mean, to get, at 50,000 units, some people still don't reach the therapeutic range, so we may have to try some other prescription vitamin D supplementation. In some instances, it might have to be injectable. And the other thing is, I had a patient once when I gave the 50,000 units and I told her to take it once a week. She took it every day. So I called her a week later and she'd taken it every day for 8 days. 50,000 units every day for 8 days.
Oh my goodness.
Nothing happened. She didn't die. It takes a lot. I mean, to get into the toxic range of vitamin D supplementation is like 400,000 units. So I'm not recommending that you do it. All I'm saying is that it takes a lot of vitamin D to get into toxic range. But I agree with Dr. Gamble. The levels have to be checked every 3 months once you're on vitamin D to make sure that you're not because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. There's no way to sort of get it out of the body. You don't want to overshoot. And one of the complications of having a very high vitamin D level is the calcium level in the blood goes up very high. And so that is actually, when that happens, bad things can happen. So people can develop stones, they can develop heart arrhythmia that can actually cause the heart to quit beating, so not to scare you or anything. I mean, 10,000 units a day, 50,000 units a week, nothing terrible is going to happen. Just make sure your doctor checks a level every 3 or every 6 months so that it's not, over accumulated and the levels are not so high that
right.
there isn't
And
an easy way to bring it down.
We're in the winter right now, and most people are shut it inside, so that compounds it. And as I said, people of color tend to need more vitamin D because we don't metabolize it as efficiently in terms of sunlight. We don't metabolize the sunlight as efficiently as Caucasians because we have melanin.
Yeah, we try and stay out of the sun.
No,
one other thing is a very high dose of vitamin D, like the 50,000 units a week, in some people can induce diarrhea and can actually prevent absorption. So in those people, it's actually beneficial to switch to 10,000 units a day and to even take it as a split dose, like 2,500 units 4 times a day, so that a person doesn't have diarrhea and they can absorb the full dose.
So
yeah, I haven't had any like that
diarrhea from it.
Right.
And diarrhea, that is another key sign that you have problems breaking down fats and fatty acids. Joyce, you had a question?
Yes. So how many units do you recommend?
We can't.
Everyone
is different.
It's not just a one size fit all.
One size fits all.
But you have to have blood work?
Yes.
You have to do your blood work to find out what your current level is. Then you have to take a lot of things into consideration. You have to take into consideration, number one, your genes, meaning are you African American? Number two, do you have other comorbidities? So like if you're diabetic, if you're hypertensive, all of those things have to be taken into consideration.
Yep.
And that's why this is what I tell people. If you have to take one test during COVID-19 season, take a vitamin D test. Don't worry about the dose.
Very well said. Thank you. Brilliant.
This test is not going to help you. If you have money for one test, get the vitamin D test.
Okay.
100% of people above the age of 60 are deficient in both B12 and D. And Dr. Gamble, you know something? I believe the long-standing deficiency of B12 is what leads to D deficiency. Because the neuro hormonal cells in the kidney that make the vitamin D, they're neurons. They need B12.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we were saying with regards to the pancreas and diabetes. It's not enough to just say, oh, let me take my insulin shot, let me take my metformin. If you have certain B vitamin deficiencies, those need to be addressed. That is one of the root causes of why a lot of people have problems metabolizing carbohydrates, because they don't have proper levels of things like chromium and all the different B vitamins, the folate.
Micronutrients and vitamins, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why what we're suggesting to you is the importance of knowing your specific body. And you are uniquely created, and your status today is unique. So your status today is different from what it was 3 months ago. That's why we said you got to retest, Sharon, because your status is different.
Yes.
Right.
3 months ago. And you can't, and that's the problem with a lot of times. Doctors will put patients on certain medications or protocols, and they don't retest. So you don't know what is happening.
Ask for it. Ask for a retest of your level. Track it. Keep a trend of it.
I keep mine tracked. I can give you my stuff every 3 months. I take mine.
Awesome. We
Beautiful.
love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you know what? We had a sister that passed from diabetes.
Oh dear.
Say
How
it again.
terrible.
We had a
Sorry to
sister
hear
that passed from diabetes.
So many people are dying from
Diabetes complications
of diabetes, including COVID. Okay. So again, I'm stressing to you, and we're running out of time tonight, but Dr. Priya is going to be with us again tomorrow, and we are going to talk all things COVID. So,
wow.
Okay, COVID.
Registered for that particular webinar that's coming up. So I'm sure if you've been to this one, you've seen our email go out for tomorrow. And we have like over 25 people registered for that one already, Dr. Priya. So,
oh, lovely, Dr. Gamble. I'm actually surprised that you're reminding me. I'm grateful and surprised that you're reminding me now, because I'd completely forgotten the date of that webinar. So I know you told me, I put it in my calendar or something, but I didn't even pay attention to it. Yes, we're going to talk about fascinating things. How do we cure COVID? What are all the ways that have been tried? What has been successful? What about this vaccine? What are some other things we can do now for the next year to prevent getting sick with COVID?
Yes.
Even if we're not taking the vaccine. So lots and lots of,
we are here to empower you, because
yes.
the thing that I'm going to stress to you is informed consent. I don't care if you say to me, Michelle, I want to take the vaccine, if you have been informed, okay? So informed consent means that you have been told all the possible side effects, complications, and risks, and you've been informed of alternates, of options. So when you have that combination of information, then you can make an informed consent, and I will bless you whatever you choose to do, okay? Because we are not here to tell you what to do. We are simply here to give you the education to be empowered to make a decision for what is in your best interest.
And while Dr. Gamble persuades you about checking into all the possible problems with the COVID vaccine, I will tell you what you can do in case you decide not to get the vaccine, and how it can reward you in many ways, not just from COVID. So we'll talk about all that.
My preference, because I never vaccinate. I never vaccinated any of my children, and I certainly am not going to start with this experimental RNA damaging, interesting Frankenstein concoction. But like I said, if that's what I say,
you hear that, Lynn? You hear that, Lynn?
I have to say one disclaimer, Dr. Gamble. I may not agree with everything that people are saying about the vaccine, in terms of its badness, right? I just, I'm so grateful that we are allowed to have our own opinions in our country here. And so I support you fully, and anybody that has published about the bad effects of this vaccine and its how it acts on the mRNA in the body. I support you, and I commend you and congratulate you for talking about it, for publishing it. And I just want to say, in all humility and respect, that we are allowed to have different opinions on vaccines, and just because we appear together, it may not necessarily mean, would you say, Dr. Gamble, that we agree on all points?
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this, ladies and gents.
Terrific.
As I said, I love working with Dr. Priya, not because we agree with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
A deep respect and a deep sense of being blessed by her presence. And I truly acknowledge her expertise. I know that from different vantage points with different things, but that's the beauty of this platform. Again, it is to give you differing opinions, different insights, different expertise, different, the clients that I work with are different from the clients that Dr. Priya works with. And it is up to you, I believe, to go into prayer. That is what I'm going to say. Go into prayer to discern what God's will is for you and your life.
Completely agree.
I don't care what kind of alphabet soup people have behind their names. Okay? Nothing makes any difference. Nothing is above what God has for you.
Completely agree.
So,
Couldn't agree more.
so at the end of the day, you can say, Michelle, you can chuck it where the sun don't shine. Because God has told me that this is what he wants me to do. And I'll say, girl, I love you. And it's all good. It's all good. You know it? How
We
about that,
appreciate you so
ladies?
much. That's beautiful, Dr. Gamble. Thank you for being a free spirit and for freely expressing your opinion on this. I don't disagree with you. I just want to say, you know, a year from now, it may turn out that the side effects from this vaccine are minimal. You know, that this observed whatever mRNA integration was some experimental artifact. So we don't want to and then that it actually saved lives. So my brother-in-law actually took his first dose today. The next dose is due 3 weeks from now. So people who want to do it, we're not going to discourage you. We're not going to tell you that we already have data that's harming people. We're just going to say that all these things can potentially happen, but we haven't shown that they all happen. We do know that a certain number of deaths have already occurred in a certain kind of people, but that's very, very tiny, and that it does show a promising effects in terms of conferring immunity to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So, you know, that's about all we can say at this stage, because it's so it really has been rushed through. This vaccine was not expected until the end of 2021. So a lot of the things, normal waiting periods, normal animal experiments, normal procedural normal regular procedure to get this vaccine to a place of great safety and efficacy have been bypassed and short circuited and skipped over. And so definitely, if somebody says they don't want to have the vaccine, we're not going to condemn you. We're going to support you the best way we can. If you say you want to take it, we're not going to say, well, you're going to die from it. No, we're going to say, you know what, these are the things that other people have reported from other vaccines. And so be aware, and then, you know, make your choice. It's not, there is no, at this point, I would say, you know, everybody, by all indications, all, you know, the president, you know, president-elect, Dr. Fauci, all these people are taking the vaccine. And so, you know, all we can tell you is, you know, yeah, I mean, if you want to wait for 3 months, if you're at risk, I would say take it. Don't wait. You know, if you're older, you have risk factors.
So we're going to spill this conversation over to tomorrow because it is
okay.
bedtime.
So we might have quite a debate, right, Dr. Gamble? You
As we said, you know, we will present information for you to consider.
All
And
the opinions that
you,
are out there.
It's up to you to discern what is best for you. And as I said, I believe
support
that
you, whatever you choose.
Needs to include God. That's the only thing that I will say, that before you do anything, completely to deeply take that into prayer and to allow God's spirit of love and not the spirit of fear to guide you in your decision making. So with that, my ladies and gents and wonderful jelly beans, I will not see you tomorrow. Then we will see you in the new year. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
so
everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gamble. We appreciate you so much.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very, very informative.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, we loved speaking and listening to you, actually. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Dr. Gamble. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye, Sharon.
Okay.
Bye, Sharon. D, Joyce. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
How do we leave out of here? Leave.